Ontario, Ontario. It's been a long ride since Halifax, through the Maritimes, Newfoundland and Labrador. We need to relax, but we have big mileage to cover. Quebec, you threw us a lifeline. Now we are strong and it's time to make tracks. The rain and wind like an old friend of mine, we separate from time to time. Ontario, Ontario, your vast expanse is legendary.
Well, we finally made it to Ontario. Unfortunately, we had to do the unthinkable. We had to actually skip part of the TCAT trail to be able to catch up from all the time that we had spent doing repairs to the motorcycles and to my prosthetic leg back in Quebec. So we actually had to bypass a large section of the trail that goes down to Ottawa and comes back. Dan had figured that if we made it to Timmins, that everything would be just fine. So now Dan had been thinking about Timmins. He'd been mentioning Timmins for probably back in Saguenay. So a few days now he'd been talking about Timmins, like pretty much 3-4 times a day he would mention Timmins. And so I had to write a little song about Timmins, just for the fact that Timmins was something of a holy grail at this point. I was getting quite a kick out of how Dan just kept on mentioning Timmins. Timmins. So anyway, yeah, we'll ride through Timmins with the cams on, little point of view footage, and yeah, we'll play that song. Timmins, we need to get to Timmins. Timmins, we need to get to Timmins. Timmins, we need to get to Timmins. Timmins, we need to get to Timmins.
If only we were at Timmins. If only we were at Timmins. Everything would be alright. We could ride right through the night. We could leave early and push big mileage. We could skip lunch, but that's sacrilege. This time we skip a portion of the TCAT, and the feeling of defeat is a fact. The breakdowns are weighing us down, but Dan has his sights set on this town. If only we were in Timmins. If only we were in Timmins. If only we were in Timmins, everything would be okay. If only we made it to Timmins. If only we made it to Timmins, we could join the TCAT again, and all effort won't be in vain. If only we were in Timmins. 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 If only we were in Timmins.
So after our wonderful little tour of Timmins, we decided that we were going to head off to Gogama, see how far we could get out down that way before camping for the night. We ended up hitting rain. It wasn't that far, and we hit rain, so by the time we got to Gogama, we were pretty wet and soaking, and cold and quite miserable and not in the mood for camping. The good side of it, though, is that Skogama is a little fishing resort area, and there was some decent places to stay. So we found a good deal on a cabin there with a nice view and a fire pit. So we sat there and drank some beers and enjoyed the fire and had some hot showers, and we were able to get some nice beds that were warm and dry. So not a bad night overall. So after our campfire and drinking beer that night, we woke up in the morning and to a bluebird sky. So we hit the road, which soon turned into dirt, on the way to Chapleau. Just as we'd started to enter town, we actually merged with a group of guided ADV riders. So we sat around and drank coffees and had lunch with these guys. Kind of interesting listening to them talking about their trip and stuff. And we exchanged some stories and had a good afternoon there. Then we hit the road over to Wawa. But they had just come over this road, and this is going through Halfway Haven between Whitefish Lake and Chapleau. So interesting area, and we ended up having to refuel halfway through there. So it's a rather long stretch, well over 200 kilometers, and a little bit sketchy at times because the road starts to grow in and you kind of think you're lost. But that happened to us a few times and we weren't sure what was going to happen, but we came out on the other end and we found a beautiful campsite at Whitefish Lake.
Cabins are looking pretty rough, but I guess in the winter they probably look cozy. So I guess what this place is, sorry, let me finish swallowing, is a gas up place for snowmobilers in the winter. There's a 400 kilometer route that passes through here, and this is the halfway place, so it's called Halfway Heaven. And they get gas, warm up, and then they do the other 200 kilometers. But like most things in life these days, COVID killed the business, so now it's all shuttered up. Nobody comes here anymore. Maybe one day it'll come back to life. But it's unfortunate that things got shut down like this.
Got yours in there too already, or?
It will be.
So 290, how much since that?
293 kilometers.
293 kilometers since we basically hit gravel, hey?
Except for that short section of pavement.
Yeah. Wowzers. Yeah, starting to feel it now. This road keeps growing in and then opening up and growing in and opening up. I don't think there's a reason why it won't go through to the end. Should be okay, I think. Definitely not getting much use though.
Saw a whole bunch of footprints.
Yeah, lots of moose probably, and lots of scat like dog shit. So those guys said wolves, eh? They saw like 3 wolves.
Yeah.
That's probably what that is. That's all over the place. I've been seeing lots of that.
Yeah.
Probably like 20 or 30.
Saw one bear scat.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, this is starting to feel like a real challenge at this point. Getting tired. Be nice to see us getting out of this trail, getting to some more. Well, we haven't seen a single car. When's the last time we saw somebody? Was that right at that T junction?
That white pickup truck.
Yeah, that's way the heck back. Probably 200K, probably or more. Pretty wild. That's the last person we've seen. So, yeah, starting to feel a little real as far as being remote out here. So, if anything happened, we'd be not relying on anybody else but ourselves to get out of here. That's for sure.
I got Garmin SOS.
Ah, yes, of course. There's always that. Bring in the helicopter.
Ontario, Ontario. It's been a long ride since Halifax, through the Maritimes, Newfoundland and Labrador. We need to relax, but we have big mileage to cover. Quebec, you threw us a lifeline. Now we are strong and it's time to make tracks. The rain and wind like an old friend of mine, we separate from time to time. Ontario, Ontario, your vast expanse is legendary, and we are prepared to hammer onto the prairie, but not before we explore the land of lore. As we have always heard of your many stories, we must forfeit the whole of these glories, for we are running out of time and our expedition is in its prime. Ontario, 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 Ontario. It's been a long ride since Halifax, through the Maritimes, Newfoundland and Labrador. We need to relax, but we have big mileage to cover. Quebec, you threw us a lifeline. Now we are strong and it's time to make tracks. The rain and wind like an old friend of mine, we separate from time to time. Ontario, Ontario, your vast expanse is legendary, and we are prepared to hammer onto the prairie, but not before we explore the land of lore. As we have always heard of your many stories, we must forfeit the whole of these glories. For we are running out of time and our expedition is in its prime. Ontario, 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 Ontario.
So we had been cruising along for quite a long time now with no mechanical issues between the bikes, and this was going to come to quite a sudden end, just east of Kenora, and we had some pretty big issues here because we had routed the throttle cable after the carb job that we had to do there in Quebec. We had routed that cable through the return cable line instead of the pull cable line because somebody had switched that system to a one pull cable or one cable pull system from a two. So we didn't notice. We just thought it was fine, and we hadn't even thought about it. We just routed it through what seemed to be fine, and it was not. And it frayed the crap out of the cable, and we ended up almost breaking that cable. So there was no chance of getting a replacement cable for this thing anywhere in the area. The closest I could get a cable was probably Saskatchewan because we had to order it about a week ahead of schedule. It had to come from probably Vancouver. So in any case, we had to do a roadside fix on this cable, and that lasted right through to the end of the trip.